I've experienced a lot and learned a lot through my concussions, but mental health is a really broad.
Right.
You know, that's I don't even know where to go with that. But one of the things that I was curious about is that we were talking about this before you came in here. I'm a firm believer in therapy. I've been in and out of therapy all my life for various reasons, and believe in the help that can provide somebody to be able to sit down and talk to somebody through your problems. But a lot of people, I think, don't know they need help.
Yep.
A lot of people, like, how does someone know, like, I could probably get some help for this? Where do you get in the moment that you wake, you can say, hey man, I think I can get this, I can be better here.
That's right.
Right? How do people get that realization?
Well, first, I was that guy. I didn't know I was suffering. I didn't know I was suffering in silence. You know, and it wasn't until I was at McLean Hospital where I was like, I've been hurting, and I didn't know it. So I was absolutely that guy. I think it starts with awareness. So a lot of people don't know. So they need to hear your story. They need to hear my story. They need to hear Kevin Love's story. They need to hear Demi Lovato's story. They need to hear Kelly Osbourne's story. They need to hear The Rock's story. They need to hear Michelle Obama's story. They need to hear people's story. And that, to me, that's the most gratifying thing is when I'm out and I'm traveling and people are like, you know what? I heard your story, and because of it, I seeked help, right? And I also think that the other side to what you asked is, you got to have a want to. There's a lot of people that don't want to talk. And, like, there's a certain way you go through therapy. There's a certain way, you seek help. There's a lot of people that's resistant. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be here. I ain't doing this. No, you got to be open. You got to be vulnerable. You got to say, I need help. It's the same with substance abuse. And I think that's where transformation starts, is when you say, I need help.
Were you feeling, when you started to reach out and get help, how long is that process? How long before you start to realize that this is a good thing for you?
For me, it took a couple of years because I was pushing back. It was everybody else. It was the world. It was everybody else. I'm pointing the finger at it. It ain't me. It ain't me. It ain't me. And once I got to McLean Hospital, I was there for 3 months in an outpatient program, diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And I was in self-assessment, which is a group therapy where you just literally you sit in a circle and you talk about what's going on in your life. I was in mentalization therapy. A lot of people diagnosed with borderline personality disorder thinks black and white, and it teaches you the skills and tools to be able to process and be able to evaluate. Well, maybe, and not just draw conclusions right away and react off of that, which is never good. Cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical behavior therapy. I was doing one-on-ones with the great Dr. Gunderson. And so I was there for 3 months in this amazing program. And literally at the halfway point is when I realized, like, when I had my first breakthrough, because that's the first time where I stopped pointing the finger at everybody else. And I just said, let me see how I contribute to it. And that's all I did. I just focused on that, whether it was 20%, 50%, or 75%. That's the only thing I focused on. And my world drastically changed right then and then.
That's awesome.
And that's about 2011, is that right?
That was 2011.
What was borderline personality disorder, even though you wouldn't have known about it? What was it at its worst for you?
It was really the first 4.5 years of my career.
So you were in the NFL.
I was in it. It was that, we're talking about everything from the relationships with my family, the relationships with my wife, the relationship with my teammates, everything. It was like I was living, it was a living hell, it was absolutely everything. I couldn't control my emotions. I didn't have the skills and tools to be able to self-regulate. I was just a ticking time bomb.
Who recommended to go to the hospital?
So interesting process in the NFL. You have we have there's a program. Like if you get a DUI or if you you fail a drug test, they throw you in a substance abuse program. If you get in trouble, they throw you in a program where you got to talk to someone. So for the first 4 years of my career, I was talking to people, but it was always everybody else's. It was always, someone else's fault. And, I remember my 4th year in the league, they reached out to me and said, hey, we want to fly you to Waltham, Massachusetts. So we want you to sit down with Dr. Gunderson. Mm-hmm. Flew out there for 2 days. And, we had a conversation, and then I just left. And nothing came of it. I left. He just sat down, talked to me for a day. I was there for 2 days, and then I left. A couple years later, traded to the Miami Dolphins, and Ricky Williams just launched his 30 for 30 doc, and it was Run, Ricky, Run.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I'm looking at this guy, and I was just there, and he premiered it, and this dude was in, like, Australia living in a tent. And I remember one part of the video, Dr. Gunderson came up and talking about Ricky Williams and all this. I was like, damn, that's the same guy I talked to, okay? So you have that picture of Ricky, but then I'm in the locker room with him every day that year, and he's phenomenal. And I'm like, this is not the guy that was living in that tent in Australia or whatever it was. Like, this dude left millions of dollars to go live in a tent, right? And I'm like, who is this guy? So that year, 2011, I mean, it was horrible playing for the Dolphins. And I would walk in and say, well, I know the coach is going to say something I don't like, but I'm going to bite my tongue. I'm not going to say anything. And then I would say exactly what I said I wouldn't. I would do exactly what I said I wouldn't do. And I was like, holy need help. And I went to Ricky. I said, Ricky, do you think I'm bipolar? He said, no, Brandon, I don't think you're bipolar. I just think you say the things that we all want to say but shouldn't say. And I was like, man, tell me about Dr. Gunderson. And he started telling me about Dr. Gunderson. And I was like, I'm going to go to that guy. If he helped Ricky Williams, then I'm going to go to that guy. And then I flew out to meet with Dr. Gunderson. I called him first, and he said, well, first, let's talk first. And we had this conversation. And it was awesome. It was like an hour conversation. And then he called me back and said, okay, you can come in the program. I said, all right, great. I didn't know it was a question. He said, yeah, because the reason why I wanted to talk to you, because if you were the same guy from a couple years ago, I would have said no, because that guy I could not help. He said, something's different in you now, and that was the vulnerability and wanting to help. He said, where I think I can help you. So that's how I end up seeking help. But I still was hard-headed. It was my football agent and my long-time assistant, my football agent, Earnhardt Jr., and my long-time assistant, Kathy Lee, who came in and said, Brandon, you need help. You should go to this program. Like, they really pushed me over the edge.
Dang. So what's give me an example of an experience in the program.
Right.
Like what type of things are you guys doing?
Right.
Where you're
So the program I was in, borderline personality disorder is like an emotional disorder, being able to self-regulate. Somebody can walk in this room right now, something happens, and we all see it, we feel it, and someone who may have, may not have borderline personality disorder under control in their life, they don't have the skills and tools to be able to self-regulate and to cope with whatever just happened. You guys may be able to get over it in a minute. Mm-hmm. For someone, dealing with borderline personality disorder, it could take them an hour. It could take them 2 days. It could take them 2 weeks.
Is this anything?
No,
or just some things?
Just some things.
Yeah.
Just some things. And everybody's case is different. Like borderline personality disorder, BPD, presents itself in over 265 different ways.
Wow.
Right? Like Ricky Williams, Ricky Williams was diagnosed with BPD. I was diagnosed with BPD. 2 different stories, right? So how did it look in the program? It was like being on a college campus. That's what it was like. I would wake up, every day around 7. I think get to campus around 8. Maybe my first group or session was at like 8:39, and I'd be there till 5. And after that, I would go to Reebok's headquarters. I was signed to Reebok at the time, and I would train for the season. But it
You were
literally
there
was that I was just jumping around to
8 to
different
5
groups.
every day?
Yeah, because I was going from mentalization therapy to dialectical behavior therapy, self-assessment, one-on-one with Dr. Gunderson. So I would literally just be on campus bouncing around. What was interesting is while on campus, though, there was a few times where, I'd be walking and I'll see someone talking to themselves like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" And they just wasn't there. It's like, damn. And those were reminders like, I'm really at a mental institute right now. I'm at a hospital, right? Or I walk into a session and there'll be blood seeping through a bandage of someone's arm, from self-harming themselves. You hear the stories of, oh, yeah, I tried to commit suicide last night. There was a young lady named Sasha, we call her Sasha Bear, who completed suicide on campus, right, while I was there. So it was interesting, and it was probably the most phenomenal experience of my life.
Man. So now I was wondering why you were so eager to share, so eager to speak about it. I mean, that right there says enough. What is your goal going forward? How are you? What is your? I know you started the House of Athlete. There's a lot of components in that business that deal with mental health. You're trying to help those guys understand what that complete package is. It's not just on the field. But what other things are you doing, or how are you trying to help other people?
House of Athlete is McLean Hospital to me. When I was at McLean Hospital, those 5 pillars that I linked into earlier, that's what I was doing. So the transformation that happened in my life, I was training every day. So when I leave McLean Hospital, I was going to Reebok's headquarters and I was crushing it, right? Not everybody has to train every day, just a couple times a week. I was also leaning into my nutrition, mental fitness. Obviously, I was at McLean Hospital, but I also was practicing meditation. I was praying. I was reading. I was doing so many things spiritually there. The 4th thing was recovery, taking care of my body, sleeping, massage, taking care of, if I had a, hamstring problem, my back was hurting. And then I had my team that was there. I wasn't up there alone. My long-term trainer was there. And then also I had like a little crew because I filmed everything that they turned into my family. So I wasn't there by myself. So those 5 things is the pillars that make up House of Athlete. Because a lot of times when we have this conversation about mental health, it's so clinical. There's so much stigma around it. When you talk about House of Athlete and you talk about mental fitness, it's more, welcoming.
Yeah.
It's not as scary. So at House of Athlete, we focus on the fundamentals of health. There's a thin line between impairment and performance. And so when you come there, we have, and I think this is how we should approach it, just to be disruptive and really make it comfortable for everyone. But when you come to House of Athlete, we have mental health professionals on site. On Wednesdays, there's no training there. We have some of the top athletes training there now. We have 50 pro athletes training there. We have a couple hundred Gen Pop members there, youth athletes as well. Wednesdays, there's no damn lifting weights or running on a treadmill. You can come recover. You can take the self-assessment class that we call mental fitness. You can do our mindful mobility class. You can jump in a float pod, right? And so that's what I'm doing now. And I think that's, that's one of the things when I think about legacy in the NFL, that's one of the things that I wanted to do was, make sure that it was mandated that every club had a mental health professional on staff. It wasn't like that back in the day. They made that move a couple years ago. And then the biggest thing for me when I was playing in the NFL, instead of me meeting with Gail in her room next to the janitor's closet on the 3rd floor when I was playing for the Chicago Bears, instead of meeting with her there in her room, I would meet with her in the middle of the weight room when guys was there to break the stigma.
Yeah.
And when I was with the Jets, I would do it in the cafeteria. When I was with the Giants, I would do it in the cafeteria during lunch hours so everybody can see it. So I feel like we need to take our mental health professionals and put them right next to our strength and conditioning coaches. Where we train physically, we should also be developing mentally.
What is the biggest mistake athletes make when they get into the league?
Ooh, wow. Freedom.
Ooh, okay.
So the biggest mistake is what got us there is the routine, and staying focused, the humility. And then when we have freedom, it's like you start breaking routine. You start doing things you've never done before. And I think that's a huge mistake. You just got to stay focused. Eli Manning, his entire playing career, he did the same thing over and over and over again. And the reason why I, mention him, because like if you go on the road with Eli Manning and you're like, hey, Eli, let's go to this amazing steakhouse where, it's the only time here all year. I can't break routine. I can't break routine, right? Yeah. So, it's probably a better answer there, but that's the thing that was top of mind for me.
If you enjoyed that conversation with Brandon Marshall, you need to listen to the entire podcast. The Dale Jr. Download is available on all major podcast platforms.